senior project presentation. Thank you for coming. So raise your hand if any of you have ever seen a play. That's all of you. Okay, so the first play that I ever saw was The Princess Bride, and my high school put it on when I was probably 6 or 7. And something that really stuck out to me was this scene. You may be familiar with it, when they're climbing up the cliffs of insanity. And I was really curious about how they were going to do it in a high school setting with a very small budget that the school didn't care about. The student budget was very small. So what they ended up doing, which was really cool and made me laugh, was they took this giant sheet of butcher paper and they decorated it to look like a cliff. And they made little, construction paper cutouts of all the different people and put them on like a fake rope and had them climb up and down, and the actors off stage gave their lines, and it was really funny. It was on a low budget. So that made me interested in different sets, how to create a story with limited set and resources, and that was really cool. So flash forward to my sophomore year of high school. I actually joined a technical theater class here at Thunder Ridge High School, and it gave me so many different opportunities and such huge exposure to different kinds of set building and props and lighting and just the way theater works. And so this is some of the really cool things that I've gotten to do from the class. This is a gargoyle that I built out of paper mache and styrofoam, that type of stuff, and I got 3rd place at state when I entered it in competition. I lettered in drama this year, which is really cool. This is a set that I built for the play The Curious Savage, and it's kind of a rough draft of how the real stage looked, which is really cool. This is my teacher, Jordan Kemick. She's awesome. She was actually my mentor for this project. So my project comes from Ammon Arts Community Theater, which is an acting company here in town, and the president reached out to me and asked me to build a set of stained glass windows based on this kind of rough draft. We made 3 instead of just 1. And I was very excited, and of course I said yes. So that's my project. So my first step was researching and coming up with plans. So I had to research the time period that the set took place in, and it was around the 1890s that the building was built. And so I had to look at different stained glass and what it looked like at that time and come up with a subject matter. I really liked these hummingbirds and different color schemes. It was less exciting than this color scheme, but this is some of the research that I did for stained glass. And my next step was drawing it out. So I took a huge piece of butcher paper and drew out the entire thing and measured, and it was really fun. We ended up coloring in these little spaces with pencil to make sure that we all knew what was going on, because it was really confusing when we didn't. So we had these are Japanese cherry blossom branches, and these are petals falling down. We have our hummingbirds here. So our next step was hot gluing. We took a few pieces of plexiglass and hot glued over all the lines that we drew on pieces of paper. This was really challenging for me because I will admit I'm a huge perfectionist. I want every detail to be perfect. And I had friends helping with this, and it was really frustrating when they would make mistakes and pour hot glue on a spot that wasn't supposed to have it, or we have some beads here. But a good rule of thumb that I learned through this process is that the audience will be seeing your set from a minimum of 30 to 40 feet away, and so it just has to look good from far away. It doesn't matter if it looks good close up. So that was an important lesson that I learned. So step 4 was painting after we finished the hot gluing. This was hard because there's no set way to paint on plexiglass to make it look like stained glass, because people don't generally do that. So what I found through lots of experimentation is that you need to mix 2 parts of clear glue with 1 part of paint and let it air dry, and that's what this looks like. So that's what we did here. It took a long time. And this was actually in the middle of rehearsals for The Curious Savage, so we had to make sure not to get in the actor's way. So we ended up moving around a lot during this process. So here's our finished project. One interesting thing about this is that we actually flipped them backwards because I didn't like how the light was coming through when it was on this side with the hot glue. So this is backwards. This is the flat piece of plexiglass that we painted over. But I really like how it turned out. This is it in the frames. And that was really cool. What we actually did, I didn't like how the light hit the windows when we first put them up. I was really discouraged because it just looked really bad. So what we ended up doing is we took one of the lights that was coming through here and we pointed it a different direction so that the light was coming through at an angle instead of directly through. And I think that looked a lot better. It looked more like real stained glass. So this is some stuff from The Curious Savage, which is the play that it took place in. We have actors in the room right now that were in it, so they're very excited. So this is a cool opportunity. Here's a little No, it was awesome. So this brings me to my research paper, and I did my research paper on different elements of a good set design for theater, which was really fun. So the first one that I found is kind of the bare bones objective, which I think The Curious Savage is a really good example of, which is just that it provides a background. For a lot of centuries of theater, this was all that was required of a set, and actors would just come on without practicing on a set, and they would just perform and do their best, and that was okay. And so The Curious Savage does a really good job of that, is just providing a background and setting a general mood for what's going to happen during the play. Around the 1800s, sets started getting more involved in the action of a play, which brings me to the next objective, which is that it creates an environment in which actors can act. And the set designer for this play, which is Seussical the Musical, another Ammon Arts production, was Alison Rockwood. She did an amazing job of creating an environment in which actors can act. She built this really cool, weird Seuss-esque platform and steps, and there's even a playground slide right here. And characters can interact with it and stand on it, and it represents like jungle treetops or a small town or cliffs or whatever it needs to be, and that is really awesome. So the third and final objective of a good theatrical set is that it facilitates and accommodates the action of a play. And Beetlejuice the Musical is a really good example of this. They have this really fun, quirky, kind of out there style of set, and my favorite part about it is that they have these little scarecrow arms and legs that kind of come out and surprise you, and they interact with the main character. Like if he's sad, they'll hand him a tissue, or they hand him a microphone or ukulele to sing with. Or one time he was singing on the top of a roof and he crossed his legs and then he pulled out a third leg and crossed it over the top of the two. And so it just like maintains the mood of the play and makes the audience laugh, and it has a lot to do with the plot. And here are some of my sources that I used for the paper as well as my project. And do we have any questions?
Do we actually do questions right now?
Yes.
Okay. So what was the most challenging thing you think about, like, making the stained glass? Like, what was the hardest thing about that experience?
I think definitely, like I said, letting go of perfectionism and learning to look at it from really far away. Actually, this is something you wouldn't expect, but it was a really big piece, and you can't really set it up against anything and look at it from far away. So I had to just imagine what it would look like from far away when I was seeing it up close. So I saw the little tiny details, but I really had to let go of them, and that was kind of challenging. So that was probably the hardest thing.
So you've done. You said you took a technical theater class starting as a sophomore. You're a senior now, so for the last 3 years, and then you did this project based in technical theater. So how does this tie into your future? Like what are your goals here moving forward?
Well, after I graduated high school, I wanted to go to Southern Utah University and pursue a Bachelor of Fine Arts in theater with a design and technology emphasis. So that's really related to this project, actually, and so this is a good experience in learning what I want to do and getting a real taste for set design and theater.
And will you continue to donate your services free to Ammon Arts?
I think so. I think it was really fun working with Ammon Arts. They're really good people and fun to work with, so I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to work with them.
Well, you're going away to college, but if you're home, I think they would definitely still use you.
How has your experience in volunteering this sort of stuff in set design and set building influenced your plans for the future?
I think it really has just solidified what I want to do, because it really gave me a taste of working with an acting company that wasn't a high school, and it just kind of further solidified the fact that this is really what I want to do with my future, and so it was a really cool experience.
Any other questions?